Fireside today is with Hussein, founder of super.com. I just want to do some audience participation. Who's heard of super.com?
Amazing. At least a
Okay.
few people.
You know, and I think we'll get into that in a bit as we go through this. So it's great doing a Fireside because I can't butcher the introduction. So Hussein, can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. I thought you were supposed to do that for me. Hi, everyone. My name's Hussein. I am a repeat tech entrepreneur. So this is my second time. My first shot was a company called AdParlor. It was a Facebook ad optimization company. Ended up building that company completely bootstrapped. I know we talk a lot about fundraising, but I did that completely bootstrapped. Ended up selling that company to AdKnowledge. Stayed on there for a few years, took some time off, like did some volunteer work, tried to like figure out what I want to do in life. And I decided, surprise, I wanted to start another company. So about 6 years ago, I started this company, and it was initially called Snap Travel. And it was about booking a hotel room over messaging. So you pick up your phone and you send a text and you say, hey, I want to book a hotel, and we'd send you great hotel deals. So we'll go into the story, but fast forward about 6 or 7 years, we've rebranded the company. We are now Super or super.com. We still have Super Travel, which was formerly Snap Travel, but we are now also in commerce. We are in fintech. And what we're really building is a savings super app for the everyday American. So they can go in there, they can save money on hotels, they can save money on shopping, they can use their card to earn cash back, to build credit. So really it's that everyday American can go and use the savings super app to save across everything they buy.
I love that introduction because you've just teed up all my questions.
Yeah, no more questions.
So let's go back to AdParlor. Before that, you were working at Bell. You know, what was the insight that led to AdParlor and gave you the confidence to go becoming a founder?
Yeah, I mean, I get that question a lot. And for the early founders, I was in a very fortunate position in that I lived in my parents' basement and I had no expenses, right? So I graduated from Waterloo, studied computer science. I worked at Bell as an engineer. And the number one thing I thought to myself was, I fucking hated working for a big company. So that was like obvious. And then number two was, what's the worst case scenario? And I said, worst case scenario, if I try this out and it doesn't work, I'll just flash my Waterloo computer science degree and go get another job as a developer, right? So it was kind of like risk-free option in a way. So I was like, I'm going to go do this. And fortunately, within the first kind of 4 to 6 months, that company started to take off, and it's a great decision.
So what led to the insight though? You explained like how you could get out for free.
Yeah. Okay. So the insight was, this was around the time when people started building Facebook desktop games. So I don't know if anyone remembers like Mafia Wars and Farmville. This was like a long time ago. But I just started building games for fun. And then I was like, how do I make money off my game? Because that's the first thing you think about. How do I make money? And there was no like ad network focused on Facebook games. So I just decided to start building it. And I was like, let me just build this ad network. And it wasn't, I guess, a crazy insight. It was just kind of serving my own purpose. And I started to build this ad network. And maybe I'll fast forward just a little bit. What ended up happening is Facebook's ad platform really started to evolve. And then at some point, they opened up the Facebook ads API. So you could like programmatically create ads and delete ads and make modifications. And we were fortunately one of the first few companies to get access to the ads API. And I think your next question that you were probably going to ask me is like, what was the secret? Like, how did this succeed? And if I'm very honest, a lot of it was just the right business at the right time. So at that time, investors were pummeling money into e-commerce companies, gaming companies, online companies. And then these companies were going and pummeling all their money and shoving all their money into Facebook ads. And there were only like 10 companies in the entire world who optimized Facebook ads. So kind of all 10 of our companies just kind of lifted at once. Obviously, there was a lot of execution and a lot of hard work, but we joked around in that we didn't need a sales team. We needed like an order taking we need order taking people, because you get a company, they get funded, whatever, $50 million. They'd go to Facebook and they'd say, we want to spend money. Facebook would point them to us and say, hey, there's a company that's really good at optimizing on our platform. So we just like take orders, and that's how the company grew. So a lot of it was just the right business at the right time.
So you're in the envious position where any founder in this room would like to get to. Basically, product market fit. You can't handle the business, or maybe you could handle the business, but there's a lot coming in, and you exit. Why'd you exit?
Oh yeah. So the exit was, it was probably more timing than anything else. So we started the company at the right time when Facebook ads were just starting to take off. And I actually think we exited the company at the right time, because after we sold the company, or shortly thereafter, Facebook really, two things. One, they opened up the ads API, so there were like hundreds and hundreds of more competitors. But then two, they just started building all the optimization technology that we built, like directly into the platform. So right now, do people advertise on Facebook over here? Some people. There should be more. But if you do, you'll see that like most of it can be done directly on their platform. You can just go and be like, this is what I want. I want leads. I want conversions. Here's how much I want to pay. Like, go. Whereas before you couldn't do that. So it was just good timing to start the company, good timing to exit the company.
And then one last question before we move on to your current company. What was your biggest lesson learned?
Yeah, I would go back to that first thing I said, which is about timing, and you know, there's, I think Ava talked about, you know, a couple of times in a decade you have this like kind of technology change or advantage, and like it was really being at the right spot at the right time, right? So like mobile was taking off, Facebook was taking off, Facebook ads were taking off, like all these things just kind of lifted the company. So really think about, you know, moving with the trend versus trying to fight against the trend.
Okay, so
Like you wouldn't go right now and try and start like another Groupon, right? Because you're like, hey, at that time, daily deals companies were great, and if you tried to do that, unless you're doing something completely different with a completely different advantage, if you're, you know, Temu and you're doing something like mobile first social shopping deals, that's different. But if you're just trying to build another daily deal site, you probably wouldn't do that right now.
just a side note, Temu seems to be doing something right because my
They do.
daughter downloaded and has been like spamming everyone in the house to get the referral code, get free stuff. So bought, you know, started at the right time, sold at the right time. You know, could be on the beach, get the itch. So, what was the inspiration, or how did you know it was the right time to start something? Which was, I guess, let's call it at that time was a travel company, the Snap Travel.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of background there. So as mentioned, I did take some time off, right? And I really thought about what I wanted to do, and yeah, I had the options, right? Do I want to be an investor? Do I want to be a philanthropist? Do I want to be, you know, all these ideas? Do I want to just be on vacation? Which kind of it's fun, but after about 6 months, 8 months, it's not that fun anymore. But the biggest thing for me was that I was still young and energetic, like physically, mentally, and excited, that I just knew I wanted to go through the journey one more time, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur one more time. Way too early to retire. So once I kind of decided on that, then it was not what do I do, it's like who do I do it with? Because I think a co-founder is so key and critical. I know there's a lot of very successful solo founders, and some people can do it. For me, the co-founder is key. So my co-founder from my last company, he kind of still wanted to hang out and take time off and do other random stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to find another co-founder. And that's when I met my co-founder for this company, who's Henry. He was an engineer at Google. He was also like, I don't like working for a big company anymore. And he was looking to start something. He was looking for a co-founder. It kind of worked out. We had a mutual friend who introduced us when I was at an event in San Francisco. And that's when we're like, hey, we have the same values. We have the same like drive, ambition. We're sort of a good match. I'm more on the business side. He's more on the tech side. And we're going to go ahead and do something together. So we knew we wanted to start a company. We found each other as co-founders. He quit his job at Google. I actually moved out to San Francisco for about 6 months, 8 months. And we were like, okay, we're going to do this. And we got like a co-working space with no idea, zero idea. And we're like, let's go start a company.
And then how'd you determine what to start? Because like that sounds like a horrible idea. Let's just go start a company.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things we did. So first of all, there's this book, and everyone should write this down. It's called Running Lean by Ash Maurya. And you can actually just Google it and you'll get like the free PDF. I see some heads nodding and some people may have read it. So I'll give you the basic premise of like how to like programmatically start a company. And you're doing either a B2C idea or a B2B idea. If you're doing a B2B idea, the way it works is you pick a space, like let's say, I don't know, real estate, and you go talk to 100 real estate agents and you just ask them the same questions over and over again, basically trying to find out what their biggest problem is. By the time you get to person number 20, 25, 30, you know exactly what they're going to say. So you're going to be able to be like, I know what your 3 biggest problems are. And then what you do is you go back to those people and you present them a whole bunch of solutions in different orders and in different ways. And eventually, by the time you get to person number 10 or 20, you're like, these are the 3 biggest problems real estate agents have. Here are the 3 biggest solutions that we think can solve those problems. Here's how much they'll pay for each one of these solutions. And then you decide if you want to go and build that or not. You've already de-risked it. You know people want it. You know you have a solution for it. You know how much people will pay, and you have your first set of customers. The B2C version of that is you come up with ideas, you build landing pages, you buy ads, you drive traffic to it, and then you see if people click on the big button, right? So if you have an idea in fintech, you may have 5 different ideas for fintech. You drive traffic to it. You see what the click-through rate is. You see what the conversion rate is. You see what people are going to pay for. Very programmatic, very uninspiring, but very sort of data-driven. So we did all of that, and then, but going through that process and just talking to people, we kind of got blindsided by this thing called chatbots, and everyone was building a chatbot, and it was like, let's go build a chatbot. And funny how it's come full circle now with ChatGPT, yeah. But at that time, everyone was building chatbots. We happened to be talking to one of the ex-president of hotels.com. He was giving us some ideas about travel, but we were kind of doing the B2B process. And then we're like, fuck it, let's just try building a landing page where you can book a hotel using a chatbot. We threw it up. We drove traffic to it. We would take our phones and manually respond to people. Well, that's another thing, by the way. Everyone wants to write code. Why are people writing code if you don't know you're solving something that people want? Henry is a world-class Google engineer. I have some decent skills myself. We didn't write a single line of code. What we did is we drove people to the landing page. They would click on the ad. They would text my personal cell phone, and I would be like, hey, do you want to book a hotel? And then we'd go on hotels.com or Expedia. We'd find hotel deals. We'd send them pictures. We'd send them prices. We'd type in their credit card number, and we'd book them a hotel. We booked our first 100 hotels completely manually without a single line of code on our personal cell phones and our personal laptops.
Love that. So you found your idea.
Yeah.
And then you did something different than the last one. Last one you bootstrapped.
Yeah.
You probably had enough money to fund this. You said, screw it, I'm going to use other people's money. Why?
Yeah, so for me, again, doing this the second time around, it just had to be bigger. It had to have more impact. It had to be more scale. It had to be just more significant. Otherwise, there wasn't really a point for me doing it personally. I was going to do it. I'm going to do it big. And then raising money, it completely changes your mindset, right? So the first company, I'm so happy we did it the way we did it. I'm happy we bootstrapped it. I'm happy that we own most of the equity when we sold the company, if not all the equity when we sold the company. But we fought tooth and nail for every dollar. We fought tooth and nail for every employee. We'd want to hire someone and we'd be like, okay, in 3 months, we can hire that person because we'll have made enough money to be able to hire that person. Now, all of a sudden, you raise venture dollars, not that you can just hire people willy-nilly, but you can actually invest ahead of the revenue, invest ahead of the profits. So if you need someone or 10 people, or in our case now, 250 people, you can go and hire these people and you can go and build things ahead of time and you can go and really invest.
So I want to jump forward today. Can you give us some idea of the traction you have?
Yeah, so we are about 250 people, as mentioned. We've driven over $1 billion in sales, sort of approaching probably $2 billion by the summer. Over $100 million in net revenue. Travel business is doing well. The card business, so we just got into the card business. We have a MasterCard called Super Cash. We have tens of thousands of card users, and it's just kind of taken off and starting to grow. So it's been pretty humbling. I mean, $1 billion is a lot of sales. It's not a small number.
I have one quick off the schedule question list. Any rappers singing about Super Cash yet?
Sorry?
Any rappers rapping about Super Cash?
Oh, no, not yet. I hope so. Although it could be problematic, right?
Yeah.
Depending on.
You might get shorted if that happens.
Yeah.
Just so you started off with travel. You just talked about doing fintech. Just give us a high level. I don't think we have the time to go on all the details.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that later, some other time. But how'd you get from where you started to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, a very good question. So for us and for everyone, it should be all about talking to customers, right? So talking to customers is the number one thing you can do. So when we started this travel business and grew this travel business, we started noticing very interesting things in the data. Most of our customers were booking like 2.5-star, 3-star hotels. They were customers who were paying with a debit card and not a credit card. They were customers who didn't just want to save, but they needed to save, right? So the difference between saving $20, $30, $50 was the difference between them going on a trip or not going on a trip. It was pretty like stark. And there's reasons for that. We're very US focused, we're very mobile focused. People who really want to save will really find the best price. Whereas I know everyone wants to save, but we'll sometimes book directly with the hotel because we want to collect points. We'll sometimes book directly, with a company like Expedia because like we trust them or whatever it is. But like when you really need to save, you need to save and you find the best price. So when we talk to these customers and we saw what they want and what they needed, we could see that they needed to save on not just hotels, they needed to save across the board. We could see that 60% were paying with a debit card and they needed access to credit or they were afraid of credit. So just talking to customers kind of led us down this path and made us realize and believe that we could do a lot more. We could help this underserved community and we could help them experience more of what life has to offer.
So I have a question about your customer base, because the Valley, and I imagine in this room, lots of founders, they solve problems that impact them, and that's what we're told. And you're to do, and you're solving a customer that's not, let's, for lack of a better word, a sexy customer. Most of the people here are not users of your product. They could be, but probably aren't because not your target demographic. So what are the benefits and challenges of building for that customer?
Yeah, so first of all, it is an underserved demographic because there's not a lot of people who go after them, right? So when you look at like the major banks, they're not trying to build a product for that customer set. So there is an advantage. There's a big gap. There's a big hole in the market where there's just not that many people who are paying attention for them, and it's big. We're not talking about a small set of demographics. So when we look at the core U.S. population, we're talking about 83 million households who have extremely low FICO scores, another 100 million who have like okay to good FICO scores. So almost half of the U.S. is this demographic that needs. So that's one, is big. But two, I actually wanted to go talk a little bit more about the problem, because it is a problem when we don't really understand the demographic, right? Because yeah, people want to build products for themselves, and it's hard if you don't really understand the demographic. As an example, we book a hotel, we walk up to the front desk, they say, "Oh, excuse me, sir, it's going to be $50 or $100 hold for incidentals." Yeah, okay, yeah, just go. Come on, where's my room key? For a lot of our customers, they can't do that. They don't have $100 to put on their credit card for incidentals, right? So it's unless you really go in deep and you understand the customer set, it's really hard to do. So one of the things we did is last year we actually took our entire company, almost 200 people, to Las Vegas. Now people think, "Oh wow, Las Vegas, this sounds like a fun party," which it was. But what we did is we dedicated one entire day to put ourselves in our customer shoes. So we broke everybody up into groups of like 5 to 7 people. We gave every group an actual physical $100 check. They would walk into check cashiers all around the city, and they would go and feel what it's like to walk in and be like, "I don't have a bank. My only option to cash this check is to go into this payday loan store, cash my check, see what it's like to be charged an arm and a leg just to cash a check." Then they took that money, they went to the local Walmart, and they tried to buy groceries and food for their family for the entire week with $100 that they had, brought all that food back into a conference room like this, and we sat and we talked about the experience. So like we try and do these really immersive things to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers. We don't pretend to be that customer set. We can't pretend to fully understand what they go through, but we do these things to hopefully get our people thinking in the right way and trying to understand this customer set. We do a whole bunch of other stuff. We have a panel of 200 core people in our demographic who we talk to all the time. Everyone talks to customers. I talk to customers myself about once every 2 weeks. I spend an hour getting on calls, talking directly to customers.
One more question before we open up to the audience. So first of all, I love that customer development. Can't get better examples of that. You're located Toronto and San Francisco. Lots of your executive team in San Francisco. Why is that, and what are the benefits or disadvantages of each city?
Yeah, that's a big question. I hope we have more than 5 minutes, but
Jason, 5 minutes.
okay. I'm gonna give you a very brief. First of all, like I absolutely love Toronto. I love the city. Born and raised here. Like built both my companies relatively over here. So when pre-COVID, we were just in Toronto. Fantastic. Once COVID hit, we decided that we're gonna be fully remote and we're gonna hire the best people no matter where they find them. That was surprising. You think a travel company in COVID, yeah, that was really, really scary at that time. But now in hindsight, that was one of the best things that's happened to us because of the fact that we now have the best talent no matter where we find them. So we don't even think anymore about Toronto versus San Francisco versus, we think like, where's the best talent? I have a lot of people who work at this company. To be honest, I'm not even sure where they are. Right. So
I'm sure your payroll does.
Yeah, my payroll does, my legal does, HR does. But like, it's to me, it's like if you're a great talent, like you're a great talent, and that's fantastic, right? So that's the first thing I would say, that it's about the best talent no matter where they are. But when you get to this large scale consumer US company, a lot of times the best leadership and experience management are in the US, right? Like we have ambitions to one day take this company public on a US exchange. Our CFO has to be an American with US experience who's worked at US companies. You can't have that in Canada, right? We have, a customer set of, over 50 million customers, over, people who have transacted with us. 95% are in the US. We need to speak to this customer set. Our chief marketing officer is going to be from the US. She came from Chase. She knows how to speak to this customer set. She understands the US banking system. Unfortunately, that person is not going to be in Canada, right? So what ends up happening is, as you get to a large scale US consumer company, a lot of our executives and a lot of our leadership team comes in the US. That being said, we still have a ton of great talent in Toronto and a ton of great talent in Canada. 95% of our engineers are still in Canada. Probably 60% of our product team are still in Canada. 60 to 70% of our ops team and finance team are still in Canada. So if you think of a 250 person company, probably have about 70% in Canada, but 30% in the US. But yes, a lot of the executive and leadership team are now Americans.
Cool. You did under 5 minutes. I will open up to audience. Sorry, we get what? Oh, Jason wants me to be civil and say thank you. So can we get a round of applause?
Yes. Thank you.
I still have a couple more questions. So,
thank you, Hussein. Thank you for all the comments and sharing your experiences and story with us. My question is on something you talked about earlier in your presentation there about timing. So you talked about what it was like to work with Facebook and to raise capital about, what was it, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago? How about the present? We're moving into economic headwinds. What is your advice for founders, but also for investors? What landmines should we be looking for in this time period? But also, what opportunities may this economic environment present?
Yeah. So the good thing about this current time is it kind of washes out the companies who are all about hype and not about the customers, right? So what happened in the past few years almost made it tougher for good companies and real companies who were building real good products with real customers and driving real revenue. Because what would happen is all the companies who were like great at waving their arms and have a bunch of Stanford bros who are friends with them were able to raise all this capital without having a real business. So I think if you're building a real business, kind of like what Ava said, like go build something real, build real product, talk to customers, you're gonna do fine. And this is now the time to do that. You can raise money building a real company versus raising money just based on hype.
So you and I actually occupied a really small part of Toronto together. So when you were building on Liberty Village, I was building a company on Fraser, just down the street. The question is around building a travel company with a duopoly in the market between Expedia and Priceline. How did you navigate building into that duopoly market?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that later. That's a tricky one. First thing to realize is just a massive, massive, massive space, right? So, last year we did about $1 billion in sales. Booking.com did about $100 billion, right? So we're still like 1% of one of those companies, even at the size and scale that we're at. So there's always opportunities to do that. And then 2 is being able to find a niche and a competitive advantage. And again, the target demographic we were going after, our ability to sort of really focus on getting discounted rates allowed us to kind of wedge our way in. So finding competitive advantage is realizing how big that space is. And by the way, Expedia and Booking are also friends. So like we work closely together. We buy inventory off them. They buy inventory off us. It's all we're all frenemies.
You talked a lot about user research and going to talk to your customers. So if you were to sit on a panel with a lot of like larger company CEOs and leaders, how would you convince them to get all of their teams out to talk to customers?
Yeah, so I think what it is first from the top down, you kind of have to believe in it, and I definitely do, and my co-founder Henry does. 2, we do it ourselves, like we literally talk to customers ourselves, and then 3, we actually rolled out like a formal program to be able to do that. So we actually have an entire research team led by our CMO, and they set up the structure. So they basically create these groups of people. They reach out to them. They incentivize them with like, $25 Amazon gift cards. They set up schedules. And if you're a leader, it makes it extremely easy. It just shows up in your calendar. Talk to customer, talk to customer, talk to a customer. You click in it, you see all the history, you see all the customer history, and you get on that call. So believing in it from the top down, and then kind of having that set up and structure. So it makes it really easy for all your leaders to do that.
Hey, Hussein. So you're fully remote. Aside from bringing people together in Las Vegas for incredible experiences like that, how do you build a culture, and how do you hang on to your amazing talent?
Yeah. So our core company values, we have 6 core company values, and we talk about them all the time. So like every weekly business review, we talk about them. When we do performance evaluations, we talk about them. In the onboarding, we talk about them. In the interview process, we talk about them. So we just have to like repeat them nonstop. I think the other day we did a survey, and it was like a crazy survey. It was like 100 questions. But the question that had like the highest score by far was like, do you understand the company's core values? And that was like 98% or something. So we just could keep like repeating them, but then living by them and really doing that. And then the other thing I found really helpful is even at this size of company, I still try and make myself personally as visible as possible. So anyone can talk to me, anyone can Slack me, anyone can get into my calendar. I then found that people were still scared to do that. So then we set up this program called the CEO coffee chat, where like HR could they could go to HR, and HR would they could go and put in like a 15-minute slot in my calendar, because then they felt less intimidated to do that. So like I try and make myself as available as possible. And I think by doing that, I still can't hang out with everyone, but I try and do that to maintain the culture and have people continue to think hopefully the way I do, or similar to the way I do.
Jason sat down, so I want to give you 2 more quick questions. 1, are you hiring?
Yes, we are definitely hiring. Yes.
So where should people find out about that?
Super.com.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna lie. I have 2, and I'm gonna throw another question. How much do you pay for Super.com?
Ooh, I knew that question would come up. I cannot say actually, because I signed an NDA, but it was a lot of money, and it was quite interesting debate at the board level whether we should buy Super.com or not. And it was pretty split at the board level, but we ended up doing it, and I think that it's going to pay dividends. I think with a generic name like Super, having the .com definitely helps. I think when you're in fintech, there's a lot of trust that's required, and having Super.com probably creates more trust than not having it, and it's going to allow us to do a lot in future branding and advertising campaigns.
I'm going to buy you a few drinks tonight to get the number. Last question. If people want to follow you, know more about you, where can they follow you?
Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah, my Twitter's up there, and my LinkedIn's up there. Oh, it's
Excellent.
up there.
Yeah. I get a round of applause.